As a child, I believed in love stories, the kind where you meet the one person who completes you and spend a lifetime building a future together. It was a simple, innocent dream, shaped by fairy tales and hope. I thought I'd grow up, find someone who felt the same, and we'd grow old hand in hand, facing whatever life threw our way. I held on to that belief for years, through adolescence, through college, and into adulthood. But life has a way of testing even the strongest convictions. My name is Logan. I'm 30, a computer science graduate with a master's degree, and I work at a successful consulting firm. I've always been driven, balancing my career with a focus on health and discipline. My days start early, with a 520-meter run and a trip to the gym before heading to work. My life, by most measures, was stable and fulfilling. And a huge part of that stability was Harper, my wife of 5 years. Harper and I met in college when she was completing her accounting degree while I pursued my master's. She was vibrant, intelligent, and passionate. We clicked immediately, and our relationship felt effortless. After years of dating, we tied the knot, and for a while, it seemed like everything was falling into place. Harper was everything I could have hoped for: beautiful, strong-willed, and supportive. She embraced life with a zeal that I admired, and I felt lucky to have her by my side. We had built a good life together. Our marriage was grounded in mutual respect, shared goals, and a strong foundation of trust, or so I thought. We had reached a point where we were planning for the next big step: starting a family. We had discussed it at length, agreeing that our 5th anniversary would mark the beginning of that chapter. That night, we would set aside the contraceptives we'd used for years and take the first step toward parenthood. But life has a way of derailing even the most carefully laid plans. That Friday evening, I returned home from work as usual. I was looking forward to a relaxing night, maybe a beer, a movie, and some light-hearted conversation with my wife to start the weekend. Instead, I walked into a moment that would shatter my world. Harper sat at the dining table, her posture tense and her eyes fixed on me. She greeted me with 5 words I'll never forget: "Honey, we need to talk." I knew immediately that something was wrong. Those words rarely precede anything good. But even then, I couldn't have anticipated what she was about to say, or how it would change everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the woman I had married. The tension in the room was palpable as Harper uttered those 5 words: "Honey, we need to talk." I set my beer down, trying to steel myself for whatever was coming. At first, I thought it might be about a financial issue or a disagreement at work. But the weight in her voice hinted at something far deeper. She began hesitantly, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her shirt. Then she dropped the bombshell. Harper said she wanted to explore something new before we started a family. She wanted to experience dating other men, to satisfy what she called lingering curiosities, before committing to motherhood. She assured me it would be temporary and argued that it wouldn't be cheating because she was being honest about her intentions. I stared at her, unable to comprehend what I was hearing. We had built 5 years of marriage on trust, partnership, and the belief that we were enough for each other. Now, she was asking for permission to step outside those vows, to test the waters with other men, promising to return as if nothing had happened. The audacity of the request felt like a slap in the face. "Are you serious?" I finally managed to say. My voice was sharp, disbelief laced in every word. But Harper remained calm, explaining that this was about clarity and growth before starting a family. She said it was better to get this out of her system now than risk having regrets later. Her reasoning only stoked my anger. I couldn't understand how she could rationalize betraying our vows for her own gratification. Worse, she had already discussed the idea with her colleague Scarlett, a woman who had been through 4 divorces and was known for her casual approach to relationships. Scarlett had encouraged Harper, framing it as a way to clear her head before settling into motherhood. I told Harper exactly what I thought, that Scarlett's advice was destructive and that her suggestion would poison our marriage. But Harper stood firm. She wasn't asking for permission. She was informing me of her decision. "If you insist on doing this," I said coldly, "you can't stay here." I reminded her that the house was mine, a gift from my parents before we got married. If she wanted to explore, she would have to do so elsewhere. Harper protested, claiming I was being unreasonable, but I didn't budge. The bed, the house, our life together, it was all built on the assumption of fidelity. If she wasn't willing to honor that, she had no place in my home. Over the next few days, The atmosphere in the house was frigid. We avoided each other as much as possible, exchanging only the bare minimum of words. Then, on Saturday evening, Harper descended the stairs dressed to the nines. She wore a little black dress, stockings, heels, and her hair styled as if she were heading to a gala. She clutched a small purse, clearly ready for a night out. "I'll be back before morning," she said casually. I stood up, incredulous. "If you walk out that door," I told her, "don't expect to walk back in. I'll be changing the locks." Harper hesitated for a moment, her face torn between defiance and doubt. But when a car horn honked outside, Scarlett, waiting in the driveway, she made her choice. As the door closed behind her, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, hurt, disbelief. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. If this was what she wanted, then she had already made her decision. While she was gone, I took action. I replaced the locks, reprogrammed the garage door opener, and packed all her belongings into boxes. Clothes, toiletries, everything, it all went into her car. I wasn't going to let her waltz back in after shattering the foundation of our marriage. But I didn't stop there. Using discreet apps I had previously installed on her phone for safety reasons, I tracked her location and listened in on her conversations. What I heard confirmed everything I feared. Harper and Scarlett laughed about the situation, joking about how a little adventure would make her a better wife. They even discussed her potential rendezvous with another man, detailing how she planned to bring him back to the spare bedroom. Hearing her casual disregard for our marriage broke something inside me. This wasn't a moment of confusion or doubt for her, it was a calculated betrayal. I withdrew half the money from our joint accounts, canceled our shared credit cards, and transferred most of our investments into accounts solely under my name. By the time Harper returned the next morning, the house no longer felt like hers. She tried to enter, only to find herself locked out. When she called, I told her bluntly that her belongings were in her car and she could figure out the rest on her own. She screamed and cried, demanding to come in, but I hung up. Over the next week, I busied myself with projects to keep my mind off the betrayal. I worked on my old GNC pickup, restoring the matte black paint and tuning up the engine, a productive distraction from the emotional storm I was navigating. At the same time, I met with a lawyer to begin the divorce process. Harper tried to justify her actions, claiming that I was overreacting and that her intentions were never meant to hurt me. But the damage was done. Our marriage, once built on trust, had become irreparably fractured. The days leading up to our 5th anniversary were surreal. I watched Harper continue her escapades as if nothing had changed, but for me, everything had shifted. Her betrayal had stripped away any illusion of the life we once shared, leaving only the cold reality of what she had chosen over our marriage. By the time our anniversary arrived, I had made my decision. This would be the day I officially severed ties with her, both emotionally and legally. I hosted a gathering at the house that evening. Friends and family came together, believing it was a celebration of the milestone we had reached. Harper, unaware of the event, arrived late, dressed casually and with an air of confidence that only deepened my resolve. The house was alive with chatter and music, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil beneath the surface. As Harper walked in, the reality of the situation dawned on her. This wasn't the intimate anniversary celebration she might have expected. It was something entirely different. Standing in front of our guests, I laid bare the truth of the past few months. I recounted how Harper had chosen to explore other relationships, betraying the vows we had made together. The room fell silent as I explained my decision to move forward without her, the weight of the moment palpable among the attendees. At that point, I revealed the legal actions I had taken. Divorce papers, prepared weeks earlier, were formally served to Harper in front of the assembled group. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock and finally to anger, the realization of her actions and their consequences crashing down around her. Harper's face was a storm of emotions: betrayal, embarrassment, and fury all at once. Her family, who had supported her through every stage of our relationship, sat frozen in disbelief. Friends exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to stay or slip quietly out of the house. The event was not just about ending the marriage, but about reclaiming my life and dignity. I had spent weeks planning every detail of this moment, ensuring that there would be no room for misinterpretation. Harper had made her choices, and this was the final public acknowledgement that her actions had destroyed what we once had. By the end of the night, the reality was clear to everyone. Harper's belongings, packed meticulously in advance, were waiting for her in the car. The locks had been changed, and I had no intention of letting her return to the house we had shared. It wasn't revenge that drove me, it was the need for closure, for a definitive end to a chapter that had become toxic and irreparable. Harper's actions had shown me who she truly was, and I refused to let that version of her continue to dictate my life. The days after that night were quieter than I had expected. The house, now empty of Harper's presence, felt strange but liberating. The echoes of our life together had faded, replaced by the anticipation of a fresh start. Harper moved into a small apartment, distancing herself from the life we had built. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, she struggled to maintain the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. Her relationship with Scarlett became strained, their once solid friendship unraveling under the weight of their shared decisions. Harper had chosen to walk away from the stability of our marriage, and now she faced the consequences of that choice alone. For me, the weeks that followed were about rebuilding. I focused on creating a life that felt true to who I was, without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. Projects around the house kept me busy, and my restored truck became a symbol of the fresh start I was carving out for myself. Harper and I had little contact after that night, except through lawyers finalizing the divorce. The process was slow and draining, but it was necessary. By the time the papers were signed, I felt like a weight had been lifted. The chapter was finally closed. A year later, my life looked completely different. I had met someone new, a woman who brought warmth and trust back into my life. She had a daughter who reminded me of the importance of building relationships on honesty and respect. Together, we created a home filled with laughter and love, the kind of environment I had once dreamed of but had never truly achieved with Harper. Occasionally, I would hear about Harper through the grapevine. She moved from one failed relationship to another, unable to find the fulfillment she had sought by stepping outside our marriage. I didn't feel bitterness toward her anymore, only a distant sense of pity. She had lost something she could never reclaim, and I had gained a second chance to build a life worth living. Looking back, I realized that betrayal doesn't just destroy trust, it forces you to re-examine your own values and choices. I could have handled things differently, perhaps with less anger, but I don't regret standing up for myself. Harper's decision to break our vows may have ended our marriage, but it also freed me to find something better. If there's one lesson I took away from that chapter, it's this: dignity matters. No matter how much you love someone, you can't let their choices define your worth. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is walk away, but it's also the most necessary. Thank you for reading my story. If you faced similar challenges or found strength in unexpected places, I encourage you to share your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this, feel free to follow for more stories and lessons from life's toughest moments.